Hello. I hope you had a great holiday season and a wonderful honeymoon. Um, so, one of the things I've always really liked about your Naked Truths is the positive attitude you bring to them. It's actually one of the things I had said last year. I wanted to try and be more positive, and while I think I have been a little more positive, I still feel I default to the negative. And if I move forward this year, kind of towards the end of the year, I felt like it took a little step back. But this kind of forced me to look at, I guess, the positives for the year. And I think so much of how we feel about ourselves is perspective. Even and I found this a little amusing. Listening to you talk, saying how you felt you weren't as outgoing as you thought because you like a little time to yourself. Whereas me, I was at a New Year's Eve party, and if this isn't like your stereotypical like loser geek type of thing, I actually had a point where I just sat in the corner, was on my phone reading comic books. And I know this could sound like a negative to some people, but for me, I didn't spend the whole night in the corner, and I was out. I was out on New Year's Eve, and it's the first time in a long time that I wasn't home by myself at midnight on New Year's Eve. So, for me, it's a step forward. I know people find like being alone on Valentine's Day depressing. Being alone at New Year's Eve can be really depressing. Anyway, so I guess some of the positive stuff from this year. Build on a couple things you said. First of all, the new Star Wars movie made me feel like a kid again. Always been a huge Star Wars fan. You mentioned you went to your first PAX. I didn't do that, but I went to my first San Diego Comic Con, and I got to meet you. So right there, how could the year not be awesome? Um, Other than that, I didn't have the huge life changes like you did. No new job or didn't get engaged or married or even go on a date. Although I did have a lady last week give me her number 3 times. Granted, she was like in her 60s, married and drunk, which are three qualities I don't look for in a woman, but hey, you got to start somewhere. Uh, but for me, I guess it's about personal growth. And I know I've talked in the past uh, about how I've taken a lot out of these naked truths. Both, I usually really enjoy your perspective, but for me, it's also been, I guess, almost a form of therapy for me to do this. But I've also kind of used it as like a gauge with where I am, I guess, in terms of my social anxiety. I know I mention my social anxiety a lot, and most people probably don't get it, but just a quick example of what it was like for me. I was younger, and I can imagine for someone like you, this would seem crazy, but like when I was in school, I would take an F rather than do an oral report. Standing up in front of a class just terrified me. I remember doing one in high school, and that was only because it was what we had to do with a partner. It was a friend of mine, and I didn't want to let him down. So I like to think at least of a good friend. Uh, but I could even go back to elementary school having one, and like the night before getting sick and thinking I was happy, being happy that I was sick and I missed that day. And I wasn't faking it, but looking at it now, realizing how mentally you can like make yourself sick, I wonder if that was part of it. Anyway, so talk about the for myself doing these naked truths at the beginning of last year. I had been doing them, but I would say only occasionally, and they were always private. And over the course of the year, I started doing them public. I I say I do them more often than not now, but I even from time to time do my own thing. It's rare, but from time to time. And for me, those are really big things. It's really tough for me. Beyond that, yeah, I know I mentioned once before with the Comic Con where I did my first cosplay, something a year and a half ago, I would have thought I never would have done, and it it may have been my favorite day of the year, other than meeting you, of course. But I've always been someone who never really felt like he fit in. If I'm with people who aren't really into the geeky, nerdy stuff, I'm this dorky loser. Yet when I go to places where it's filled with geeks and stuff, I feel like I'm not geeky enough. Uh, but that day, I just kind of like felt like I fit in, and even though I'm not really comfortable with attention, I really seemed to enjoy it that day. So that was, one of my highlights of the year. Even a lot of the stuff that didn't go well, a lot of it has to do with, I feel, organization, which I feel a little, the early part of this year, I'm starting to get better with. But, a few things, during the year, I'd read a couple things on meditation, and the wonderful effects of that. I said, I'm going to try that. And I tried it for a little bit and I never kept up with it. But over the last couple of days, I've been doing it. Not that I've seen any difference yet, but I've actually trying to schedule time now every day for it, which I was even thinking about as you were talking about your chest pains and stress stuff. I think you mentioned meditation, one of yours before, but I can't vouch for it, so I haven't done it myself enough, but maybe it's something that if you haven't tried, I would suggest look into. It's supposed to be good for stress, and if you can't take a day for yourself, maybe you could schedule in 20 minutes a day. And another thing that I had wanted to do, I wanted to exercise more. I good last year with it. I've been on and off this year, and towards the end of this year or last year, I kind of stopped. Something else I want to schedule a little more, make sure I'm a little more consistent with it. But I'm saying, oh man, I've definitely put on some weight at the end of the year. Haven't been exercising as much, and I want to do it as much mentally as physically. But I did a few things last year. Did a couple obstacle course races, and I ran a half marathon. Okay, I use the word ran. I'm using the word ran kind of loosely, but I finished, and I finished at a reasonable time with a bad knee. So I did a freaking half marathon. For me, that's a big step. And hopefully I can continue with that. So yeah, there's still stuff that I want to improve on, and I think you do need to look at the negative stuff too to see what you have to work on and why it didn't work out. But been a lot of positive stuff too, and even talking about the naked truths and stuff. There are a couple things I've done early this year that I either wouldn't have been able to do in the past. I'm not even going to get into what they are. They are be so simple to regular people, but I either would have been able to do, or they would have literally given me a panic attack when I've done stuff like it in the past. And I understand part of this is the fact I am now on an anxiety medication, but I feel the fact of doing these has, I guess, helped me with certain aspects. And I know I'm horrible at these. I'm horrible in front of the camera. I think every other word is either or but I think that probably makes it better, makes me more uncomfortable. Yeah, so that's just a few of my things this year. So thanks for watching. I hope you have a great year. And since it's a little chilly in here, I am going to now put on my Jedi robe. So again, have a happy new year, and may the force be with you always.